Do-hyuk stumbled back, his mind reeling from the revelation, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest, each beat echoing the shock that coursed through his veins. He clutched the ancient scroll tightly, as if it were the only thing anchoring him to reality. Its parchment brittle under his trembling fingers, the weight of its secrets pressing down on him. The words swam before his eyes, blurring and shifting as if they were alive. Each symbol a hammer blow to his understanding of the world, shattering the foundation of his beliefs. He wasn't who he thought he was. The truth was a jagged pill to swallow. His life, his memories, all felt like a cruel trick, a carefully constructed lie.
Do-hyuk had always known he was adopted, raised by a kind old couple in a peaceful village. The village was nestled amidst rolling hills, a serene and idyllic place that seemed worlds away from the chaos now unfolding in his mind. His past was a blank slate, a mystery he'd long since stopped trying to solve. He had accepted the unknown, content with the life he had built, but this scroll, unearthed from the ruins of a forgotten temple, had changed everything. It claimed to hold the key to his forgotten heritage, a heritage that was far more complex and dangerous than he could have ever imagined. And it whispered a terrifying truth. Do-hyuk was the descendant of an ancient warrior, a lineage steeped in magic and bloodshed. This warrior, whose blood ran through his veins, had wielded powers that could alter the very fabric of reality.
The implications were staggering. Do-hyuk, a simple farmer who spent his days tending crops and dreaming of a quiet life, was apparently heir to a legacy he could barely comprehend. His dreams of a peaceful existence seemed to crumble before this newfound reality. The scroll spoke of a power that lay dormant within him, waiting to be unleashed, a power that could shake the very foundations of the world, a power that he had never even suspected. The world seemed to darken around him, the weight of his destiny pressing down like a stormy sky.
Do-hyuk stared at his reflection in a nearby stream, his face etched with disbelief. He saw the same familiar features, messy brown hair, kind eyes, and a smattering of freckles across his nose, but beneath the surface he felt a stirring, a primal echo of something ancient and powerful. The reflection showed the same kind eyes, but now they held a glint of something more, something untamed. He felt a connection to the past, a link to the ancient warrior whose blood he shared. The water rippled, distorting his reflection, but the primal echo remained, a reminder of the power that lay within. The concept of past lives was not new to Do-hyuk. He had always been intrigued by the idea that one's soul could traverse through different lifetimes, experiencing various existences across the ages. He'd heard whispers in the tavern, old wives' tales spun around crackling fires. These stories, often told by the elders, painted vivid pictures of past lives and the lessons they carried. Legends spoke of souls reborn, carrying faint echoes of their former existences. These echoes, it was said, could influence one's current life, guiding or haunting them in equal measure. But Do-hyuk had always dismissed them as mere stories, nothing more than flights of fancy. He considered them entertaining but ultimately fictional, a way for people to make sense of the unknown.
Now, faced with the undeniable evidence in the scroll, he could no longer ignore the possibility. The ancient text was filled with detailed accounts that resonated deeply with him, stirring something within. The memories that flickered at the edge of his awareness, flashes of battle and bloodshed, suddenly took on a terrifying new significance. They were not just random visions, but seemed to be fragments of a past life. Were these his own memories buried deep within his subconscious? Or were they the echoes of his ancestor, reaching across time to guide him? The line between past and present began to blur. Or were they the echoes of his ancestor, reaching across time to guide him? The idea that his ancestor's spirit could be influencing his thoughts was both unsettling and fascinating.
Do-hyuk spent days poring over the scroll, trying to decipher its cryptic messages. Each symbol and phrase seemed to unlock a new layer of understanding, revealing a history he had never known. He learned of a forgotten war, a conflict that had shaped the very fabric of his world. This war was not just a battle of armies but a struggle between fundamental forces, a battle between light and darkness that had raged centuries ago. The stakes were unimaginably high, with the fate of countless souls hanging in the balance. His ancestor, a legendary warrior known only as the Silent Guardian, had fought valiantly against the forces of evil. This warrior's deeds were the stuff of legend, his bravery unmatched. But the scroll also spoke of a betrayal, a treachery that had turned the tide of the war. This betrayal was not just a physical act, but a spiritual corruption, a darkness that had wormed its way into the Silent Guardian's heart. This darkness was insidious, slowly eroding the warrior's resolve and turning his strengths into weaknesses. In the end, the warrior had fallen, consumed by the very evil he had sworn to defeat. His fall was a tragic reminder of the thin line between heroism and villainy, and now it seemed that darkness threatened to resurface in Do-hyuk. The weight of his ancestors' legacy pressed heavily upon him, and he knew he had to confront this ancient evil once more. Do-hyuk wasn't alone in this struggle. He found himself in the company of someone who would change his life forever. Cactus Bill, a wandering swordsman with a mysterious past, entered Do-hyuk's life like a desert storm, sudden and intense. Gruff and battle-scarred, Bill carried himself with an air of quiet strength and a hint of sadness that spoke of untold stories. His eyes, though hardened by countless battles, held a depth of emotion that hinted at a life filled with both triumph and tragedy.
Initially, Bill was reluctant to get involved. He had seen too much, lost too much, and the idea of mentoring another seemed like a burden he wasn't ready to bear. He scoffed at the mention of prophecies and past lives, dismissing them as the ramblings of fools. To him, the present was all that mattered, and the past was a chain that bound the soul. But there was something in Do-hyuk's eyes, a spark of determination that reminded Bill of a younger, more hopeful version of himself. It was a look that spoke of dreams yet to be realized and battles yet to be fought.
Their training began at dawn, the rising sun casting long shadows across the dew-kissed fields. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new day and new challenges. Bill taught Do-hyuk the art of swordplay, his movements sharp and precise like a viper striking. Each lesson was a blend of physical exertion and mental discipline, pushing Do-hyuk to his limits. Do-hyuk was a natural, his body moving with an instinctive grace that surprised even Bill. It was as if the sword was an extension of his own will, responding to his every thought and command. It was as if he was recalling forgotten skills, muscle memory imprinted from a past life. Each swing, each parry, felt familiar as though he had wielded a sword for centuries.
Despite their progress, a wall remained between them. It was an invisible barrier, built from years of pain and secrets. Bill refused to speak of his past, his silence a constant reminder of the secrets he kept hidden. It was a silence that spoke louder than words, a silence that echoed with the weight of untold stories. His silence was a fortress, impenetrable and daunting, leaving Do-hyuk to wonder about the battles Bill had fought and the losses he had endured. And Do-hyuk, wrestling with his own newfound heritage, hesitated to push. He knew that some wounds were too deep to be healed by mere words, and some stories too painful to be told.
The peace was shattered on a night when the moon hung heavy and red in the sky. A horde of monstrous creatures, drawn by the awakening power within Do-hyuk, descended upon the village. Their eyes glowed with malevolent intent, their claws sharp as razors.
Fear threatened to consume Do-hyuk. He had never faced anything like this, his peaceful life a distant memory. But as he looked around at the terrified faces of the villagers, he felt a surge of determination. He couldn't let them down.
The battle raged through the night, a symphony of clashing steel, guttural roars, and desperate cries. Do-hyuk fought with a ferocity he didn't know he possessed, his movements guided by instinct and fueled by adrenaline. Cactus Bill, his face a mask of grim determination, moved like a whirlwind, his blade reaping a bloody toll.